Is it possible that the gut is the single most important organ in our body when it comes to regulating inflammation? So by the end of this video, you're going to have a good understanding of why the gut is a central player in the inflammatory process. You're going to understand how there are different components of the anatomy that allow us either to maintain a protective inflammatory response or maintain preferentially a readied state. And finally, we're going to go over the dietary interventions as well as some scientifically studied supplements that have been shown to lower inflammation driven through the gut. My name's Scott Resnick. I'm a medical doctor and I'm making these videos to empower you guys to make good decisions to turn around all aspects of your health without using drugs. And today we are talking about inflammation and the gut. So the best way to introduce this topic is to consider what the immune system does in our body, because the immune system's job is to effectively guard our borders against the outside world. Now, we've got a number of different borders. These are things like our skin, the lining of our lungs, the lining of our gut. And there are some other barriers as well, like the blood-brain barrier or the subendothelial layer that lies beneath each of our blood vessels. Basically, we are a walking, talking petri dish, and any self-respecting microbe would love to gain access across these barriers, but our immune system is in place to keep us safe. And what it does is it patrols looking for toxins, looking for microbes, and looking for what I like to refer to as dangerous strangers. These are molecules that when they gain access to our body don't benefit our physiology, but tend to make us sick. So the gut is an interesting organ because effectively anything in the outside world we can take into our mouth, which means that we can consume any kind of microbe, any kind of a toxin, any kind of a chemical. And what's interesting is that this interior lining of our gut is separated from the rest of our body by a single cell layer. And this single cell layer is joined together shoulder to shoulder with a number of different spot welds that are called tight junctions or gap junctions. Now, what this does is it creates an impermeable barrier. Now, recognize that this is a single cell layer that protects us from the entire outside world. And what happens is our immune system is thought to establish some 70% of the immune cells within 1 centimeter of this single cell lining of our gut. So it's pretty Herculean what our immune system does, because if you were to take this single cell lining of the gut and spread it out flat, it's estimated that it would be the size of a doubles tennis court. But our immune system is able to recognize something as little as 10 billionths of a meter, which is the average size of a virus, across this amazingly expansive area. So this is pretty cool. What happens is there are a number of different cells that are called dendritic cells. And dendritic cells are kind of like the quarterback cells of our immune system. And what they do is they live just on the us side of this single cell layer that lines our gut. And what they do is they put out their little fingers, their dendrites, into the lumen of the gut. And here they sample what's going on. They sample the microbial environment. They sample the quality of the foods. They look for different molecules or toxins that aren't recognized. And what these dendritic cells do is then they snap off a piece of this molecule. They miraculously modify it in some way, and they hold it up on a nice silver MHC platter in addition to molecules known as cytokines. And what this combination does is it instructs the rest of our immune system to either mount an exaggerated inflammatory response or ideally maintain a state of tolerance, ready and waiting for when we have a true invasion. The important thing to remember is that our body is geared to recognize the 5,000 or 10,000 or 20,000 different molecular proteins that are associated with whole foods. But when you begin to add up all of the different chemicals and toxins and pesticides and herbicides and synthetic molecules, what happens is as these gap junctions break down, as these spot welds that hold these cells together break down, creating leaky gut, more and more of these environmental molecules then gain egress to our immune system. And basically our immune system gets overwhelmed. And one of the ways that we can begin to control our immune system health and to lower this inflammatory response is primarily through our diet. So it's been shown that when we consume whole foods, and these don't necessarily need to be organic foods, although that's probably ideal, when we consume foods that are broken down to their native proteins, this allows our immune system to maintain this quieted state. But as we consume more and more synthetic molecules, that exaggerates our immune response and increases the amount of inflammation in our body. So the first step to lower inflammation through your gut is to go to a whole foods diet. Avoid the standard American diet, which is filled with pesticides and herbicides and toxins and colorants and gums and all that crap. Now, the next thing that we can do to help to improve the health of our gut is to consume the right number of phytonutrients. And these are the plant-based nutrients. Oftentimes, these are the nutrients that give tomatoes their red color or peppers their green color. So what happens is we know that there are a number of different phytonutrients. These are chemicals like berberine and quercetin, resveratrol, curcumin, EGCG, which is found in green tea. What happens is that these molecules work to suppress inflammation in the body by a number of different means. The first is that they work directly to establish a healthy microbiome. This is a greater percentage of the bacteria that live in our gut as opposed to the pathogenic disease-causing ones. The other thing that these nutrients do is they've been shown to directly affect the integrity of the gut lining. So they decrease the presence of leaky gut. But what's cool is that these nutrients also instruct our immune system how to react. And several of them go to our DNA and tell the DNA to start making more anti-inflammatory molecules. And these are molecules like superoxide dismutase or glutathione peroxidase. These are molecules that help to lower the inflammatory response in the body. And there are a number of well-studied supplements that have been shown to lower inflammation as well. Perhaps the most important is something known as glutamine. And glutamine is an amino acid, and it's the preferred food for the cells that line our gut. There have been some good human studies that show with an experimentally provoked leaky gut that humans can repair their leaky gut in a matter of weeks when they consume 1 to 3 grams of glutamine daily. And the last intervention that is so important, and I've made a number of videos, and you can probably go to one here and check it out, is to consume enough fiber. Now, fiber, we can't digest fiber, but there are a number of bacteria that live in our body that can. And when fiber is broken down to these short-chain fatty acids, notably butyric acid, this is like manna for our immune system. So the more butyric acid we have, the more that our immune system is able to stay in a state of ready tolerance. So there you have it. You can now understand how it is that the gut is the primary interface for inflammation in the body. We went over the different types of dietary changes that you can make to help to drive a lowered inflammatory response, as well as some of the scientifically supported supplements that I have used in my patients and myself for about 15 years. And if you guys want to know where you stand on this spectrum of disease to health, I've created a really cool little 2-minute functional health assessment, which is accessible in the description below. By guiding yourself through a series of 5 simple at-home questions, you can get a sense of where your health is along this functional health gradient. Anyways, as always, this is YouTube. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Be sure to check out the functional health assessment that I alluded to, and I'll see you guys in another video. And take care.